Welcome, Dr. David Agus, to our latest How conversation. Personally, it's just special and a pleasure to be in conversation with you. I want to start by saying that we are close and dear friends, and I cherish our friendship. I've learned a lot from you, and professionally, I respect you. Your bio is well known, but I will recite some of it. Dr. Agus is currently the professor of medicine and engineering at the University of Southern California. You've authored not one, not two, but 3 New York Times bestsellers. You're also the founder and CEO of the Lawrence J. Ellison Institute for Transformative Medicine at USC.
Thank you, David. I mean, it's truly a pleasure to be here. And I mean, and the one part of my bio I think you did mention is that you've had a significant influence on me. You know, our conversations, you've helped me dramatically in how to frame issues. I may know the science, but it's not just the science that gets things done, just how you frame it and how you present it. And I keep using that word how, and I'm sorry about that. But our conversations have dramatically influenced, whether it's writing a piece in the New York Times or whether it's giving a talk or trying to enact the behavior change and the normative change that we need in healthcare.
That's kind of you to say. You know, in the movie Jaws, we thought that the shark was the villain, but we never saw the shark. It was scary music, do, 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 do. We saw those yellow barrels on top of the water. The shark was invisible. And the corona, the virus, was invisible. It's a tiny invisible pathogen. And we went to war with the virus. But the real villain in the movie Jaws was the mayor who kept the beach open. We focused on the shark and not enough on do we have the right mayors. And a mayor is a metaphor that we actually do need to rely on actual mayors. But you're a mayor. If you run a hospital, you're a mayor. If you're a principal of a school, you're a mayor. The pandemic is a time where more people are mayors because they're in charge of something at a time where everybody's leaning on them. Advice to all the mayors out there.
If you're a parent, you're a mayor. If you're a church leader, you're a mayor. And you know, you're right. You have to take that role and responsibility very seriously. It's not just about yourself. It's about your community. And I think we have to take that step back now. And so we really need to start to encourage conversations between leaders and 2 different ways of thinking. When I speak to, you know, a group of Black churches, it's very different than when I speak to a bunch of, you know, university hospital presidents. It's very different than when I speak to a parents group, you know, at a school. I have to know my audience, right? And I need that feedback loop with the audience. And we're not taught that. And we talk the same to everybody. And I think we all have to step up and realize our role here. Your child will look at your behavior and do that. As a parent, as a leader, your behavior influences many, many others. And we all have to realize that. And I think this pandemic brought that out in spades.
For example, when I see somebody behave against interest, they make a sacrifice, they do something inconvenient, they do something courageous, they put themselves second, that tends to make people trust them. Just the act of sacrifice or sharing a burden. What else have you seen in the pandemic that people do, and they emerge as not only good leaders, but leaders that people look to?
You know, I think statistics, you know, we've all been numbed by them. And so when leaders get up there and they just quote statistics, what they quickly realize, the audience, is that, you know, you can choose whatever statistics you want to prove your point. You know, none of us can understand probability in statistics, right? You know, if one person died from a vaccine, you assume it's applicable to all of us. Right. If I tell you, you know, listen, you just flew from New York to LA, could that plane have crashed? Yes, there is a probability, and you can define it, of that plane crashing. Very unlikely, but it's a probability. Right. If I said this side effect happened 1 in 5 million people, you can't understand that, and you assume it's going to happen to you. And I think, you know, the media has really taken a role in this pandemic of really amplifying these outlying events, and people assume it's the norm. And so we have to get better about explaining that and about telling the story so they understand the probabilistic function is very unlikely, but it's not 0, but it's unlikely, and starting to understand probability, because the average person, even the educated person, can't.
So, David, there was a mentor of yours, somebody that you were very close to, who I had the privilege of knowing, President Shimon Peres, the former president of Israel. And he was obviously remarkable, but he was remarkable at the narrative, at getting us to think different. and more aspirationally and inspirationally, but in a way that catalyzed a lot of change and action. If he were with us today in this pandemic, what would he be saying now? Or what would he be saying to you?
You know, he was a beautiful person, as you knew well, in that he questioned everything. And he had a true fascination with science, with technology, and with history. And he wanted to know those stories. So we would sit for hours, you know, telling stories, and then he would come back. You know, he told me, you know, when my book was published in Israel, he wrote the foreword as a gift, and I didn't know it till the book was published. And what he talked about was, you know, when the mirror came out, the world changed. For the first time ever, we were able to look at ourselves and understand, you know, who we were and how we were, because we never did that before. We never had the ability of seeing ourselves. This new technology was the new mirror. And that was really powerful. And he had a way of destigmatizing technology and making us less afraid of it. We now have technology that can dramatically accelerate our recovery, that can make us come out of this in a year and a half rather than 4 years, and really make it on a global basis, not just a local basis. And he would be a way, and I know he would be up there, really explaining this to people and destigmatizing and taking the fear away. And we just don't have leaders like that, that take the fear away and take the time to really explain this without an agenda. You know, as you know, there was no agenda. There were just ideas and discourse, and it was beautiful to watch. And I tear up every time I think of how the world would have been better with someone like him at the lead.
Talk about the heart, meaning the notion of, you know, of being a caregiver, of empathy, of compassion. You know, we so much focus on the science and the expertise needed to fight disease or cure disease or be proactive. But as I said earlier, and you've taught me, the advance of machines in so many areas is going to have to just point to medical professionals, not coming from the heart, bringing the humanistic and humane perspective always. What role does the heart play in your profession, and what trajectory is it on?
You know, it's either harmful or helpful in my profession. I mean, I see a cohort of doctors that have the greatest heart in the world. They just don't understand technology and science on a deep enough level. I see doctors who understand science and technology at a remarkably deep level, just don't have a heart. And to me, it's really that hybrid. Right. Unfortunately, my profession now is an art. Things like machine learning and AI is going to make it better so that everybody can be at a certain level. But there still is that sense of art and observation. You know, can I tell you a secret without you telling anybody? Very few times in medicine is there a right decision, right? It's not black and white, right. Drug X or drug Y. In almost every case of patients I see, it is the right decision for the value system of the patient.
Right.
And that is a staggeringly difficult statement, because what it requires is real human interaction to make the right decision for the patient. And what we're taught is be transactional. You have 8 minutes with the patient, right. And then you have to do all your billing software and whatever. Right. How many encounters did you have today? You're great. You did 20 encounters and that person only did 15. And so I think that is something that we don't have yet the data elements to describe, right? Where do you put value as my patient? And I have to start to understand that to make the right decision for you and to have the best outcome. And that's something that's never taught. And that's something that's never described, because I can't yet put it into a structured format. Right. And it's something that I want to teach. And the only way I can teach it is when I have students who watch those interactions and sit there. And what that requires is me to tell my patients, in the most vulnerable portion of your life, I want someone to sit in the room with me and learn from that so they can be better at doing it to somebody else.
Didn't you once share with me in the spirit of conversation that sometimes when a patient is facing an important medical decision, sometimes there might be 3 doctors who sit with the patient and debate, and the patient is almost mediating a debate among 3 doctors?
Yeah, I mean, and you know, my team, you know, I really believe it's a team. I am an okay doctor, but the reason that we have good outcomes in my center is that the nurses, the PA, the scientists, we all discuss the patient together with the patient. It's not my decision. I tell my nurses what to do. I tell the scientists, this is how you treat this disease. It really is that discourse back and forth. And the patient is part of it, because they need to be. What I do requires physics, chemistry, biology, research, and patient care all together in one. And that's not how we've built our universities and our systems, but we're trying to pull them all together. And, it's an experiment, right? And I want to be transparent with what we do right and wrong, because we have to get better at what we're doing.
We've talked about leadership is not about headlines. We can all go on Twitter and see the headlines. It's about trend lines. It's about stepping back and having some deeper thoughts about the trends. Where's the world going? Where ought it to go? And passing judgment on the future, and then trying to head in that direction and take others with you. What are the big trends in our lives right now? Where's the world going?
The biggest trend we have now is that we have the ability to collect infinite data. And then we have the computing power to analyze that data and improve the human condition. The challenge is to do it right. The challenge is to do it with boundaries and transparency so that all benefit from it and we rise the tide of everyone. And we do it in a way that makes sense and is meaningful.
What do you tell the next generation that is not waiting its turn, wants to lead now? They're coming out of medical school and they already want to lead. What advice do you give the next generation of leaders who want to lead earlier than we used to wait for our chance?
I mean, unfortunately, in medicine, you can't. Any field that's an art that requires, X number of experiences to you can be good at that art makes it very difficult. Medicine is a complex emergent system. It's not a reduction. It's he or she who knows more. It's he or she who's experienced more. It can do that pattern recognition. It's still a component to what we do. And so what I tell all of them is patience. Earn the right, just like you taught me, earn the right to be the leader and have that patience. And it's very hard when they watch somebody in their dorm room at Harvard create a way to connect people and become a billionaire overnight. I want to become that leader in medicine, is what they all keep saying. And it's very hard to push that patience. The reason we can and should do it in medicine is that we're privileged. We have a feedback loop that no other field has. Every day I can help someone and get that praise that will enable me to really get those experiences and have the patience. And so because of the feedback loop that's part of our system, and I explained to them how much of a privilege it is to have that feedback loop every day helping somebody, that we have to have the patience.
What's the source of your hope and what gives you hope? And let's end with that.
I see what hope does to everyone else. I could talk about all the science I see and how that gives me hope. But I also, when I go in hopeful to a room with a patient, their outcome is better.
Right.
When I can convey that hope to others, I know they feel better. They enjoy life more. They have more quality days, quality years. And so I get that feedback loop with the hope. I don't want to give false hope because then I've done a disservice, right? Their last days, they could have done something more meaningful. But hope is so critical to half of what I do in medicine. The other half is science, but the two together, are transformative. And we've seen it throughout history, is that the scientists who had hope, really had a hope, were able to convey it to others to generate the data to have it. Steve Jobs was called the reality distortion field. He told every person there, the iPhone will work. This technology will transform humanity. And what do you know? It did. We have to bring that into our space. We have to bring the stories that convey the hope so we can get the better outcomes and we can all, basically force the future to be what we want it to be.
Thank you for being a purveyor of hope. It's been a delight and special to be together. Thank you, David. Thank you, Dr. Agus.
And thank you for being a friend that, course corrects me on a regular basis in a good way, a positive way, and enables me to achieve what I hope to achieve. So thank you.